welcome everybody. How are you today? It's Helen Patterson from Life Works Well, and we had some glitches getting going, but here we are. And today's Mentor Circle topic is all about building holistic, healthy workplaces. And after the last couple of years, I think this is something that is top of mind for many employers and HR professionals, really trying to get us back to being healthy in many ways. And so today, what we're going to be covering is how to promote healthy workplaces, how to implement some corporate wellness programs and some strategies and tips for that, and really all about improving employee well-being. You'll have to excuse me because I, after 2 years managing not to get COVID, I had it last week. So I still have a little bit of a froggy throat, but hopefully we'll get through it and we can bring some people out to ask some questions later. So welcome everybody. I'd love to know where you are calling in from. If you want to put that in the chat, or if you're watching this later, you can throw up a comment. And right now, it's really, really important to continue to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on and living on is the traditional territory of many nations before us, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, as well as many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I'm in Toronto, and I know some of you may be from other places, so let me know. We here are continuing our journey personally and professionally of reconciliation. Treaty 13 is the land that I'm on is covered by, and it's also known as the dish with one spoon. And I love that I mentioned in some of the other mentor circles that the Indigenous way is circles. And so it's really welcoming and sharing together. So if you want to let me know where land you're on as well, that'd be great. So of course, going through this the last week and thinking about life events, and at Life Works Well, the reason well is part of our brand name is that without our health and without wellness, we really can't do the things we want to do, whether that's in life, whether that's our work, whether that's our mission or other volunteerism. Everything that we do, we need to be doing it from a place of really good energy. And when we think about wellness here, we think about the body, the mind, the spirit, the heart. And so I love, as you know, starting with quotes. And I think in the past, so many people have focused on wellness and health as like physically fit, but it's really much more than that. So as you know, all month we pick a theme here. And this month, the month of May, we picked the theme of global employee health and wellness and fitness. And it was interesting because again, sometimes I'm not even aware that this is there's so many, themes that are out there, so many days to celebrate. In addition, this month, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so there's Mental Health Week that was earlier in May. And so it really all tied into holistic health. Maybe just for yourself, if you want to put something in the comments or in the chat, as you reflect on wellness, what does that mean to you? What does well-being mean? And what does a healthy workplace look like to you? So statistics, there's always stats here. I never thought I was a numbers person before, but there you go. So many people are still talking about the pandemic. I was at my daughter's graduation yesterday. She actually graduated in the health sciences faculty at McMaster. She's looking at biomedical discovery, which is like phenomenal, but there was a lot of health professions that were, and the future of healthcare. And so there was still a lot of talk about the pandemic and evidence-based medicine and so many other things. So, this is really still with us. And I think it will be for a while, even though events are opening up and people are going back to the office, hybrid work. I've been talking to people that, they're getting back into the office, and then all of a sudden there's, several people away because they are still getting COVID. So, this has really, really impacted not only the physical health, but the emotional and mental health over the last couple of years. The good news has been that it has highlighted the need for more discussion about it. And so that is, mental health itself, the stigma that had been surrounded with it. There is much more openness to talking about, the suffering, not only from pandemic, but just in this area. So I think if anything, there is that little bit of silver lining. So if you look at this, wow, should the company be doing supporting this? Because there's two camps in a way. There's some that still believe it's up to the individual to take care of themselves. And while that is true, we do have to have that self-awareness and ownership of what we do, that radical responsibility for taking care of ourselves. Life and things happen. And so, how do we get the supports? One of the things that workplaces and employers can do is provide employee assistance programs, employee and family assistance programs, mental health support care. So just looking at all the stats, like we're realizing that, with the talk about burnout, fatigue, if we're not taking care of every aspect of our health, we are not going to be able to contribute as well to our workplaces. I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat. I love this. Joanne's here from Burlington, and she says a healthy workplace is where you feel safe to speak up and clarify concerns as well as share what's great. That's a big part of it, isn't it? And maybe we'll bring you out for a little chat later, Joanne, but this psychological safety and health is a big topic that's been coming up as well. Again, if you're looking at this later, you can check out the links. You'll get the presentation. I post them up on the website, but there are links and you can go to some of these amazing resources within. So again, more stats. It's amazing to me because, again, I feel like I've seen these two different versions of people. There were those that, throughout the pandemic, they, started walking every day. They actually ate better. They lost weight. They started yoga or meditation, and so they were really all of a sudden, so much healthier. And then there was those that are like their overall health was worsened. And so it really just depends on what's going on. And a lot of it is what supports you have. Interesting enough that 56% of Canadians are conscious of their health as a result of the pandemic. So again, I think in the fast pace of the world that we were always living in the go, it was just easy to grab, fast food or not think about it, or not be able to get to the gym or do that class or find time to meditate or journal or just have quiet walks out in nature. So I think what we need to do is take this time, take these statistics, take these studies, and help organizations figure out how they can support their employees in a different way and be creative about it. So thinking about employee well-being, because again, we don't control others. And so much of it is taking our own responsibility. But then what can managers and employers do to kind of make sure that they're not contributing to an employee's burnout or an employee's, ill health or something? So simple things like, is your workload manageable? Surveying, we know that there's the annual surveys. Now we're seeing pulse surveys, but it's also about communication, like one-on-one communication, to actually have those meaningful discussions and that openness that, Joanne touched on a little bit earlier, is like, can you have these conversations? And everybody's different too. So bringing in someone's uniqueness. Some people are really happy to get back into the office and engage with people again. And some are still like, I do not want to get sick. I have a low immune system. I have, elderly parents, I don't want to expose them to the virus still. So it's not just that, there's the everyday things as well. Are you working too much? We need to keep an eye on these things. Amazing to me, because part of me thought that this pandemic really gave people a chance to kind of take a pause and look at, life, and we're hearing about the great resignation. So people are leaving. So is this burnout? This burnout is still there. And there are so many organizations and actually coaches out there and others offering programs to help people, recognize the signs or to actually support themselves to get out of the burnout. I think we're going to see this huge shift continuing with people not wanting to work around the clock. So knowing the signs, the Canadian Psychological Association has some great resources. And I think it's really important to be able to recognize them as a manager or even as a coworker. This is a great chart you can look at later. I'm not going to get into all of them. We've also posted some blogs on lifeworkswell.ca as well. If you follow us on social, we provide some of these tips throughout the month. But really there's emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and your physical body symptoms. And so, if you start to see this in an employee that, really was a go-getter, like I usually have a lot of high energy most of the time, but if you start to see me like showing up, or missing meetings or being late or, looking really tired, it could be burnout, it could be other things, it could have been COVID, obviously, but there's just things like that. But the mood shifts, so emotional symptoms, often you see that. And it could be, linked burnout. This is the thing, is it could be burnout, but it could also be linked to other things that are related to other mental health challenges. And so right now there are some courses people are taking in the HR field. We're seeing a lot of people taking mental health first aid. Again, there's some resources there that you can check it out. But part of it is the recognition. So again, corporate wellness programs. And I think it's interesting because one of my mentees who's at a corporation out in Peterborough, and she has been wanting to introduce corporate wellness programs, but there's so much going on in a workplace that it keeps getting put to the back burner, which in my view doesn't make sense, because without the well people and without people having high energy, how are they going to contribute to the workplace? How are they going to show up excited and engaged every day, right? So to me, this should be a priority. I think hopefully we're going to see a little bit more of this going forward. There's a lot of unique programs out there. There's a lot of like easy to implement things that aren't even necessarily going to cost the organization a lot. So there's 5 steps. A lot of this is, you can use with other programs as well, but assessing the employee needs. So again, don't just go and say, this is what we want to do without any like employee buy-in or having them involved in the design. Like it's really important to either pulse survey, have focus groups, really figure out what it is. And it's not, again, just the physical. And it's also not everybody wants to, participate. But once you get the buy-in from employees and the leadership, and you look at what you're designing, then you're going to determine your objectives. Like, what is it you want to get from this? Is it just getting people, happy again? Is it like energy driven? Is there, sometimes people do stop smoking programs, or they might do something on, they want to do a running club. And again, with willing participants, never voluntold, but you want to make sure you put some objectives in place and determine your why of the program. And then, designing it is the next step. What are all the things you're going to do, how you're going to communicate it, and also how you're going to measure the success of it after it's been implemented. Part of implementing the program, there's always the review and renewal. So I also add that you want to measure as well. So what are the types of things? There's physical wellness initiatives. I've been at quite a few clients who have been and sort of even ahead of the time. I would say even 5 years ago, we didn't see as many standing desks. And so those are things that are, again, looking at those, are you making sure people are set up? Maybe you have a little ergonomic challenge, like let's get everybody making sure we're setting up. Can we have walking meetings now that the weather's better? And even if it's remote, you can do this. Maybe you just get on a phone call instead of the Zoom. And even if you're remote, you could be talking to each other. You might not be able to take notes. So that's the only thing, it's if it's a brainstorming or whatever. But I had walking meetings all the time with a colleague when I was at ADP Canada, and we worked just near a park. So we'd say, hey, let's just go and brainstorm this for half an hour, get out for a walk, talk about what we were going to do, get back to our desk and kind of take the notes after. There's, when you think about traditional benefits, it was always health and wellness, health and dental benefits. And then some companies were adding memberships to gyms or yoga studios, or maybe it's, other types of classes, spin classes or something like that. That is valuable to your employees. So again, figure out what they need as far as physical. Maybe it is nutrition resources. So a lot of, there's a company, Mercer, who provides a lot of support to group benefits. They actually have something called Mercer 360, and they have like a marketplace. So in addition to your health and benefits, you can actually, as an employee, go and purchase things at a huge discount. And it could be like, maybe you just want a meal plan or something like that for the next month. You have young kids and you just need to like organize your life a little bit. It's amazing what's available now if you just do some research. The one thing I just want to remind people, though, is that accessible alternatives, because not everybody has all of the same physical abilities. So really being mindful of inclusiveness and thinking about how to make sure that anyone that may have a physical impairment is also included in any of the initiatives, and think about being creative. Mental emotional wellness initiatives. So these are just, I'm throwing out a bunch of ideas. Maybe if anybody has an ideas, they can put them in the chat as well. And so, oops, I just skipped forward. It's funny now, as I said, how things have changed over the last few years, because not that long ago, you would not hear about people talking about meditation at work. And now there's like the Calm app, which I use, which has a business offer. Same thing with, there's another organization that, and they've gone into, I'm sorry, I'm having a bit of a mind blank. I'll put it, I'll send it out in the newsletter afterward, but there's a few of these Calm apps and meditation apps, and some of them are even on airplanes, right? And organizations are actually buying bulk. So instead of individuals going to have to pay for their monthly fee, they're offering that as part of their mental emotional wellness initiatives. We might be getting back to work. There have been people that have had like on-site yoga classes. I was at CIBC and I used to love going to yoga. It was, they had some space that wasn't being used. And so they brought in a yoga person and you could sign up for the class. And it was fantastic. And I mean, this was 10 years ago, so we must have been a little bit ahead of the time. But, if there is an ability to have that, or even doing it virtual, I still believe in face-to-face is much more energetic, but, we have to be mindful of people's, comfort levels. There's a lot of people that give mindfulness presentations. There's a lot of vendors out there. There's stress management presentations. There are so many educational resources available on mental health. So I think it's really just being strategic about it and not necessarily trying to do it all at once. As I said here, we pick a theme for the month, and that's a great way to say, hey, we're going to focus on this theme for the next month or this quarter. And what resources, what help can we give you? And really making sure the employees are involved in the design. Another newer thing we're hearing a lot about, and when I think about holistic healthy workplaces, a lot of people are talking about financial health and financial wellness. And this is something that is, not necessarily had been thought of before. You might have your RSP plans, or you might have other things that you're supporting. But as part of the EAP, sometimes these things are now being offered. And when you think about it, if you don't have, because one of the number one stresses is money and financial. And so if you can provide the supports to help with that and some financial counseling and financial wellness tip. If you don't know Tracy Bissett, she has been a guest on our mentor circle. She has a company where she provides financial fitness and helps, mainly entrepreneurs, but also organizations with financial wellness. So this is something I think we're going to probably see a little bit more of. I see that Joanne was in an organization that offered lunch and learns where wellness initiatives were introduced. And it's funny because that came up on the panel last month, where this was something that was done a lot, and it'd be nice to kind of reintroduce that as a way too, if you are getting back into the workplace, as a way to kind of bring people together. So thank you for that. And I think that there's so much to think about, and it's just trying to be creative. These are some additional resources. I'm going to click on a couple, but again, to know that there's a lot of, rather than going out and doing your own research, it's just, we provide curated resources. We have a lot of additional resources on our website, but there's some pretty cool stuff. The Work Institute survey, so there was like all kinds of articles here. I'm just going to, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to stop the share now, but so there's great links. And so I just wanted to kind of whip through that. I might not have finished it off, but is there anyone that has a question or comment that they wanted to make?
Helen, it's Joanne here.
Hello.
What have you heard it's a little bit different in sort of large organizations. They have the financial capability to support employees with a few more programs, whereas smaller organizations aren't necessarily as fortunate. Have you heard how people are dealing with that now, especially after people are sort of coming back half and half, after COVID? What's out there these days?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's interesting because I think this is the challenge in some of the smaller organizations and the scaling ones. So when I say small, I mean, that's even up to 100. Maybe that's not small to some, but sometimes they don't even have an HR professional. And so they are trying to figure out, absenteeism. They often don't even have enough sick days. And so it's now trying to educate those organizations on creative ways. So one of the things that one of my clients was doing, as far as having this hybrid option, when they were starting to bring people back into the office, they were gauging, and there was no force, right? So how do we do it in a cautious way where people are comfortable? And that, at first it was just, when are people going in? Maybe it's a team going in together versus everybody at once, because there was still a lot of fear at the beginning, right? And I think this is the thing. This is the biggest challenge about if you're not in the same location. So this client had offices in Vancouver, Toronto, and Ottawa. And so the one thing that came out of the pandemic was great is that they actually, because they were looking at getting Zoom, and getting like video capability to bring the offices instead of a conference call, which is like all you're hearing, and you hear people, like if they forget to do it, you can't even see people. So that kind of brought that to the forefront quicker. So that was good, but being creative. And then when they started to bring people back, they just did sort of guidelines on that. And they started to bring in like speakers a little bit, like have coffee chats to kind of bring people together. The wellness thing, it's always the last thing they think about. But in the recent one in Ottawa, what they did was when they brought people back together, they did a fun team event. They had someone come in that facilitated, and they had some movement, and it was really just about what's the purpose? You have to go back to that. What is the purpose of it? People are tired still, right? People are tired from having to navigate this. And so, for us, like here, it's easier because it's a very flexible workplace. And that's where I think flexibility and health come in hand too, because it's all about work-life integration. And how are you allowing that? I have another client who's a manufacturer, and like they've been working the whole time, right? They're in there. And so they start at 7:30 in the morning. That's their shifts, right? So they start 7:30 to 3:30, which again, I'm trying to now encourage them. Okay, wait a minute. Let's start looking at individual roles. Like, doesn't need to be that. Can you have someone coming in a little bit later? Because that's going to help them. Because otherwise you're thinking about, can you even have kids, right? Like, because 7:30 in the morning, like who's going to take the kids to school? Can they get on a bus? And now there's this expectation that you have to keep my personal thing. Like you have to look at my life as part of my work too, which is the old days, as you know, like we've been around for a while, Joanne and I, but it's like, you know what? It's your responsibility to show up at 9:00, and how you get there doesn't matter. And you're putting in the hours, and you're getting the breaks that we give you. But with this new world, it's redesigning work and how it gets done. And even in manufacturing, I think there's creative ways, like you can have different shifts coming in, right? Maybe that's how you get your people, because I want to work 12 to 8. It works for my life. My spouse will be home, takes care of the kids, but this works for me. I can maybe see the kids in the morning, take them to school. I can, do my meal planning. I can get my walk in. Because that's the other thing is like, if you have people that are struggling so much and they need the job, but they can't show up for work with energy, like how productive are they going to be? Even and especially like if you think of manufacturing, like how slow, how much time, or even like sitting at a computer all day, your brain is not going to work, right? So it's really I think we have to be more creative. Yeah, Mohini, what are your thoughts? I mean, we're just having a little chat. We can probably end early today, but what are your thoughts on, having been, newer to the workforce, and you have a couple things on the go. What do you think would be helpful from an organization? Like, what are you looking for like how supporting your wellness?
I think I would want like more comfort in knowing that my mental health is prioritized, because that's something that's really important to me. And I think a lot of like new graduates as well. And I think if we don't have that, it's just like we won't feel safe. We won't feel like we're in a healthy work environment.
Yeah. And so and that's where it's like needing to speak to people about it. Like, it's not enough for me to say, this is what I think is good, and there's resources, and even we can always improve. I'll admit, I can always say, okay, what can I do more of? I have a very small company, and I provide a lot of flexibility and support and everything else, but it has been hard because I've actually been doing this remote the whole time. And so there have been times where a prior marketing assistant, she's gone on to a wonderful full-time job. And we met, I think it was a year after we started working together, we met in person for the first time. We had a lunch. It was safe at the time. And we went for a lunch, and I haven't been able to meet some people. And so, and that's hard for me because it's an energy thing, but it's like, it's having a one-on-one conversation too, as leaders, as HR professionals to get an idea, because one person's needs may not be the same. And then I always think about the psychological safety, right? So what does that mean to people? Because we throw these terms out there. Sorry, I'm still stuffed up a bit. And I needed to take the time myself. But, what does that mean? Because there's buzzwords, but it's like, what do you need for mental health? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean I know that I can speak up? Does it mean that I know, if I was working, way too much, that I need a break? And that, that's where I think it's important to get the voices of employees. So, any other thoughts? I mean, I threw a lot of stats out there, and I threw a lot of ideas. Are there any other thoughts on and I think that for me, I think why I support scaling smaller businesses is because they don't have an HR professional all the time. They've been trying to do things off the side of their desk. And I really believe that we need to have one people person at least. And even that HR generalist, they're trying to do it all. They're trying to recruit, trying to help managers. But to me, it starts with, from day one, we want you to be healthy. We want you to, have that time. So if it means, if it's doable, if it means you work for 3 hours in the morning, you go and do your, walk, or you get outside and then you do 3 hours later in the day. I think this flexibility, if it's doable, is such a huge way that we could be implementing those healthy, habits, right? Any other thoughts?
Just one, it's funny because having been in the workforce for some time, and then, after the pandemic, a couple of things have not changed. Communication is still really key, really key. And, I remember wanting to have better conversations with managers, and you never got around to it. So I'm hoping, maybe with this time away, people have had time to go, wait, let's go back to some of the basics. And one of the basics would be just talking to people, even through Zoom. You can do it. It's just, you have to have that intent, I think. My 2 cents.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? I talk about that a lot, that communication is key. And we did a couple sessions back to basics a while back, because I think that's what happens. I mean, we complicate with all these tech gadgets and this and that, but are we complicating it versus going back to just connection, communication, real dialogue? It's not discussion. Are you listening? Those basic skills. And it's I still think it's a little harder in this environment because the energy, but he had to do it. Right? You had to do it. I was teaching. I found this interesting. When I went back to teaching for a little bit this year, I was asked to help out for Centennial College with HR strategy. And it was half a course, and it was asynchronous. And so that was even harder because I wasn't even really teaching. They were self-teaching. And then, but I went above, and I okay, in our weekly meeting, instead of just being a Q&A, I'm going to do a little overview. I think 2 people out of 20 or 30, and there was 40 something in the class, but that's who shows up, would put their camera on. So I'd be talking to entirely all screens with just a name. And that was really hard for me, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm just chatting like this, but to myself, to a little dot. At least I can see your faces, which is lovely. And so it's, thinking about that. How is that? So if that was a workplace, and you're getting on, and that's what's happening, you're having these large meetings, there were a lot of people that were able to come up with ideas on how to engage people, and so it's. But I think the one-on-one dialogue and meaningful, and you don't just jump into business all the time, where you're actually getting to know your people. So I'm really hopeful that this whole people, this pandemic has really helped focus on the people. I'm hearing a little bit that it's still, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there, that people are getting on the EDI, you know, talking about it, or they're talking about wellness and mental health, and they're putting things out there, but they're not really living it internally in their org. So, you know, really, you know, I think that the newer generations, like, I love, because so much of, yes, things haven't changed, like work-life integration and work-life harmony and not burning out, they're all important, and taking care of yourself. But you still have to have some work ethic. It's like, it's all about how we're designing the work, how we're communicating, how we're working as teams. And I think the more we can get better at supporting the human, they're going to want to do the work, and they're going to want to show up, and you know, but they're going to want to get paid for what's fair, right? And so it's not always easy when you're juggling a lot. I've been there, you know, I'm having to change meetings, or I'm having to, you know, something happened. Like, if you get sick, you get sick. But it's like, okay, well, you need to support, but then how do we work together to then continue to keep work moving, right? And clear communication, right? Like, I'm not a mind reader, Mohini's not a mind reader, Joanne's not a mind reader, but sometimes we all think, I think, hey, don't you know exactly what I need? But I really love that now this time has opened up for focus on this wellness. And I mean, well-being from so many aspects, right? Because I think it really was just physical before. But the mental health, like, it's nice, the stigma, you know, that I think there's still probably hesitancy, like, for someone to come, it's, you have to have bravery and courage to say, listen, I am not doing well, you know, and I need time off. And are we opening, like, to your point, Joanne, are we creating that open, safe space that someone could actually come and say, you know what, I need it? And then, you know what, so many companies, it's unpaid, right? Yeah, we'll let you off, but, you know, we're not going to pay you. And then it's like, wait a minute, if you're a full-time employee, as an example. But and that's where it's like, you know, how do we provide, how do we create an environment for people to be successful and to feel alive and healthy and excited to come into work every day and to contribute in their own way? You know, there's a lot of this neurodiversity discussion, you know, supporting people with neurodiverse, like autism, other things like that. And like, let's bring in people. And it's not, you know, we used to call it disability. It's not, it's just different. Like, you know, it's different abilities. They need different support. So it is not easy. Like, for me to just put up a few slides and say, here's some suggestions. It's just trying to be creative and what works for your organization. So because of this, I am now thinking for June, I'm going to have a chat with the team and people I work with and just say, let's figure this out together. Okay, so here's our goals for the month. And what do you need to make sure you have time to take care of yourself, but we can make this happen, you know? Sometimes we forget because we're on this, we were on this hamster wheel, right? I am choosing not to be on that anymore, which is not easy for me because that's how I was wired. So this year of living calmer, it's actually it's gonna be pretty good, I think. So we all struggle and we all have our ups and downs, and it's just, you know, how do we find that community and as leaders and as humans support each other to get through, you know? So maybe we'll just finish off there. For anyone watching this later, you know, if you need any of the resources, you find them at lifeworkswell.ca. And reach out anytime about whatever questions you have, anything that we can do as an organization to help you and your organization. And stay tuned. Next month, we're going to be focused on mentorship for Life Works Well. And I actually have a guest lined up, so I'm pretty excited about that. The president of Mentor City, it's a Canadian founded company. and it's a mentor platform, and he has provided mentorship actually to the HR Professional Association. That's kind of how I first met him. And so I'm excited about that. So, and that'll be our focus for the month. And just take care of yourself. We just have to do one thing every day. And if you have any other ideas or resources that you want to share with me too, send them my way. And I'm at helen@lifeworkswell.ca, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And just everybody have a great day, and keep at it. All right.